Happy Sober Day, friends, and welcome to the Sobriety Diaries. My name is Nate, and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic. That may sound crazy, but I wouldn't be where I am and helping others without it. So for that, I am grateful. The Sobriety Diaries is a video podcast where we talk to other recovering alcoholics and addicts. We hear their stories and try to help others who may still be struggling. Stick around until the end of today's episode, friends. We have details on our first giveaway, the Content Creator Bundle, but let's get down to the business at hand. Today, we are chatting with Michael from DC. Hey, Michael, how are you?
Hello, doing well. Thanks, Nate.
Good. Hey, I appreciate your time on this Sunday and sort of your willingness to be candid and open. What made you decide to share your story today?
I've been now clean and sober for almost 2.5 years, and I just feel so great and amazing every day that I really want to be able to share my story with others and help others to see that there's more to life than just being this kind of shell of a person that's going through the motions and suffering from alcoholism or other addiction.
Well said. Do you feel as though your sobriety is in jeopardy today?
Not at all. Not at all. I'm happier than I ever have been in my whole life. I have an amazing life now, and it just wouldn't be possible if I were still drinking, and I know that.
Amen. Well, with that, let's open the diary on Michael. Take it away.
All right. So I guess we'll start actually with my childhood. I was a little bit of a problem child. I caused trouble a lot, and I got grounded a lot for that. My dad was pretty strict with the punishments, and I remember there were a couple of years where I would be grounded for an entire summer, and really didn't have a social life. And it was mostly due to my grades. I kind of messed around at school and didn't pay attention. And my dad really wanted me to get good grades and go to college and have the American dream. But I was screwing off a little bit too much. So I was grounded very often and really didn't have a social life. And I think that kind of set me up for Q going to college several years later. I all of a sudden was afforded this freedom to have a social life, to go out and drink, to party, to be around all the people I wanted to be around. There was no parental oversight, and I wasn't equipped to deal with that in any way. So I kind of went off the deep end and, continued the same pattern of bad grades, skipping class, and really shot myself in the foot because I ended up on academic probation and finally academic suspension. Then I dropped out and just fully leaned into, the drinking lifestyle. I was still hanging out with my college buddies, but I wasn't going to the school. We were having giant house parties. I was still in this mountain of student loan debt that I had accrued from going to college for 3 years, but I had no degree to show for it. So I was like, screw it, let's just have fun,
The partying debt.
And yeah, the partying debt, it's real. And actually, one evening in Pittsburgh, we were having a large house party, and the police showed up and I was arrested, and I had to do a court-ordered program, some like outpatient rehab and some community service around that. But that really wasn't my wake-up call. I didn't take that seriously. At my program, I just kind of sat there with my arms crossed, not taking it seriously, looking at all these people thinking, these people are jokes. That's not me. Get out of here. I'll never be like that. And, it really could have served as a cautionary tale for me, because I did end up like them, and I was already going down that road. But it wasn't a wake-up call. And my parents saw that I was screwing off and I had dropped out of college. So they came down and they sat me down and they were like, we know you're drinking, we know you're partying. It's too much. You need to go away from here, get away from these friends. We think you should go out to California and live with your older brother for a little bit. He'll straighten you out. So I go out to San Francisco, California, and live with my brother. He's married. He really doesn't have the space for me. So I get a job in the service industry and I get my own place, and the pattern continues. I have some roommates. They all, as kids around that 22, 23-year-old age like to do, they drink, they party, they do cocaine, all of the stuff. So that's where I really actually started drinking more, I would say. And the plan was to get me away from the drinking that was happening in college, but I found it in California.
Right.
I'll find a way if it's something I want to do.
You took yourself with you to California.
Yeah. I did not leave myself behind.
Right.
So I was drinking, I was doing cocaine, I was smoking cigarettes. It was the whole package. I was making just enough to pay rent. And then after that, I didn't care because I was drinking and partying the rest of the money away.
Yep.
And that continued for years and years. And I really ruined a lot of friendships, relationships. I was terrible to a lot of people. Looking back, I'm terribly sorry for what I did. I was an awful person. I used to wake up the next morning and think, oh shoot, who do I have to text an apology to? Or can I even rekindle this friendship or relationship? I screwed up so bad.
Isn't that the worst feeling?
It's the worst.
Waking up and
The
just
shame.
wondering what happened.
The shame. And as the day goes on, you just remember more tidbits. It's really embarrassing at the end of the day. But it really, San Francisco came to a culmination. I was living in a neighborhood called the Tenderloin, which is pretty famous for being full of homeless people and junkies and whatnot. And I was partying pretty hard. There's a lot of dive bars and a big scene there. I was partying a lot, and I remember one night, what really cemented the fact that I was kind of in a downward spiral. We were out at maybe 5 a.m. after hours at a dive bar, locked in, and we were walking out, and my friend got approached by a homeless gentleman asking him for $1, and my friend, he was my friend at the time, reached in, pulled out a bunch of crumpled up money out of his pocket, and the homeless guy grabbed a handful of it, and then 3 of the guys I was with proceeded to start beating the shit out of this homeless guy. And I was just like, oh my God, what is happening around me? This is my life.
Chaos.
And then some drug dealer from across the street comes over and pulls a gun out of his waistband and starts pointing it at us. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm freaking out of my league here. This is crazy. What am I doing? I'm like surrounded with bad people. This is not the way. So I decide I need to change my lifestyle, and I moved to New York City. Where else but New York City, right? What's the next step after San Francisco?
I was trying to piece those together. Like, I decided I needed to get away from this, so I moved to New York City.
Not only did I move to New York City, I moved to Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar. It's kind of the premier party neighborhood in New York City.
Okay.
It's famous for like warehouse parties, loft parties, art parties, cocaine, alcohol. You get the idea.
Yeah.
So I moved to Bushwick, and guess what? The cycle continues. And it continues even harder than before. I'm just around different people. I'm just replacing these characters in my life with new versions of themselves. Right. It's the names change, the people are the same.
Right.
So I'm continuing this kind of lifestyle that I'm on, and it's getting crazier and crazier. I think this is about the time when I start to realize maybe I should straighten out a little bit. Like I started to have a moment of clarity, or whatever you want to call it, where I'm like, geez, this is, I'm now 31 years old, and I can't keep up with this lifestyle, and it's just getting crazier and crazier. I'm bartending at dive bars. Alcohol's all around me, cocaine's all around me.
Right.
And it's not conducive to living at all to continue doing these things.
Or to jumpstart recovery.
Right.
I think
right.
it's, you're probably working till 2-3 in the morning,
Oh,
you're surrounded by drunks and probably
6 a.m. usually.
right. Yeah.
And I remember many nights, bars close at 4 a.m. in New York City. So we
Oh,
would
right.
close out by 5, we'd be done. We'd sit and drink and smoke cigarettes and do the last of our cocaine
Yeah.
till 6 a.m. Walk out, the sun's up. You had to bring sunglasses for your nighttime bartending shift because
Wow.
you'd inevitably be leaving when the sun's up.
I'm sure folks
And
can relate.
I'm sure they can. And it's like, I knew around then that I wanted to start quitting, but it wasn't for like another 4 years, I would say, that I really started trying, just because it was constantly around me and it was just easier to continue with the status quo than it was to try to disrupt. And I really knew that I needed to get out of the service industry if I was ever going to quit.
Yeah.
But that in and of itself, I'm not sure if you've ever worked in the service industry, it's so hard to get out of the service industry. The money's really good. And all of a sudden you're 35 years old and you have no skills or qualifications outside of making somebody a drink. So who wants to hire you, right? So it's really difficult to get out of the service industry. And I kept trying, I kept dipping my toe into these other things. But the service industry, the money and the lifestyle would always bring me back. And I don't want to blame like the service industry. I don't want to blame my parents for grounding me. I don't want to blame my buddies in college for, peer pressuring me to drink more. It's all on myself. And I know that. But alcohol is just so accessible and so easy to fall into that trap. So now I'm like 32, 33, and I'm trying, I went and interviewed at UPS and I'm like, oh, maybe that's not for me. I kept making excuses on why I didn't want to leave the service industry. And that's what it was. It was excuses. I was hanging out with this guy. He was a cook in the kitchen at the bar I worked at. We'd closed up shop and it was like now like 7 a.m. And we go back to my apartment and we're just drinking a bottle of whiskey and doing the last of our like garbage cocaine that we had bought. And it's like my roommates are trying to sleep and we're listening to like doom metal at like volume 11. And like, I'm sorry to all my roommates throughout all the years, really. But we're listening to like metal and just drinking and doing drugs, and we run out of cocaine. And no dealers will answer their phone at 7 a.m. because they're asleep and they have kids and they have real jobs too. So we can't find any drugs. So I remember that I have some Vicodin from years ago when I broke my arm. So proceed to crush up some Vicodin, like 6 each, and parachute them. Wow. And I have never been so scared.
Wow.
I really thought I was gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
With all those drugs in my system. I had to go to work the next day. Wow. And like I had like some daytime responsibilities at this place, and I was in the office nodding out, curled up in a ball, like shaking. I thought I was gonna die. And that's the closest brush I ever came to like overdosing, I would say, or doing too much, taking too much. I was always pretty responsible because I was usually working when I was drunk. So I had to be responsible. But on this occasion, I kind of let myself go a little too far, and it really scared me. And I think that was kind of like, okay, I better start getting serious now because I could have died. I wanted to start getting serious. So I started formulating a plan in my head, and I was going to, quit come hell or high water. So I took a different job, and I was still in the service industry, but I was managing a hotel rooftop bar. I was mostly working during the day, and it was a very big change, very, very big shift. I kind of, shifted away from those characters that I was hanging out with during that rock bottom phase. And I cut them off a little bit. I kept them at arm's length. I would be friendly with them, but I certainly wasn't going to go party with them because I knew that would be to my detriment. So I was working at this hotel during the day, and the alcohol was still around, and there were still excuses to drink. I had to do wine tastings and lead educational alcohol classes for the staff. I was still drinking, and I was drinking a lot less, and it felt good. I was like, whoa, this feels great. I'm starting to feel better and healthier. And I really liked what I felt, but I knew I really needed to finish that distancing from the service industry if I were ever to fully quit alcohol, because I know it's kind of like this fine balance when I'm just drinking a little bit, where I can easily go off the deep end and just start drinking
Right.
like bottles of whiskey,
Off to the
start
races. Yeah.
start calling my guy and trying to get drugs and whatever it is I needed. So I eventually ended up taking a job, and so much of my story is unfortunately surrounded by my career because they go hand in hand for me, really.
Mine is too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I took a job selling memberships at a fitness club, which I was terrible at. I didn't make any money, but I was away from it and I was around healthy people. And they would have the occasional happy hour and I'd be like, I'm good. I don't want to go. But I think for me, it was just this really time. Time is what it took for me to recover, because it took me seeing over and over and over again that imprint of like how this is damaging me, how this is screwing up my life, and how this is killing me. And without that time, I don't know that it would have been, I don't want to say easy, but like for me, I felt like I have an atypical story where it was kind of like once I knew it was time, I was gonna break free of this addiction come hell or high water, because I just couldn't do it anymore. I had felt too much pain and too much damage to my life. So I get this job selling fitness memberships and I'm out of the service industry for good then. And that was December 31st, 2018 was the last time I drank. It was New Year's Eve. I remember I just felt like shit already before I even started drinking that day.
Yeah.
And
from the night before or from?
I think I had like a head cold or something.
Got it.
But I will say it's been, I don't want to say it's been easy. After I did quit, I still tried to go out to bars and drink seltzer water and socialize.
Yeah.
And I realized that wasn't doing it for me. It's not fun to be in a dimly lit, smelly dive bar if you're drinking club soda.
No, it is not.
Around a bunch of drunk people.
Right.
That's the last thing you want to do. Because I didn't know what else to do with my time. That was my whole life up until this point was spent in dive bars and restaurants, and so I figured out other stuff to do. I got new friends that didn't drink and do drugs. I started hiking more. I always had a passion for the outdoors. I started hiking more, camping. I have a really amazing partner and she's super supportive of me, and she also quit drinking as well, so that's super helpful. She was never a big drinker, but to have her by my side and support me through all of this, I don't know if I could have done it without her, but she makes it a lot easier to be sober every day. Now I try to, I'm trying to undo all the damage that I've done to my body throughout the years, mentally and physically. And I work out every morning. I meditate. I eat super healthy. I only drink water and tea. I'm
That's
trying
amazing.
to undo the hands of time. Thank you.
Yeah, it seems like need or this want to be the best version of yourself. You said something that I found super interesting. You wanted to start quitting, or that you were starting to quit. Like you had this plan that you were going to put into place, that we sort of lay everything out prior to and like get ready for the actual, before we actually jump into it. Do you think that your health consciousness now is sort of like one extreme to the next? Do you take it overboard, or is it just a healthy way of life?
I'm super cognizant of the fact that often addicts replace one addiction with another.
Yes.
And I try not to go all in on anything too wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation now.
Right.
Because I don't want to be that one addiction for another, because I feel like that's a very fragile exchange. Because if you're replacing one addiction with another, I feel like it's so easy to jump back into that prior addiction.
Right.
And it's not really treating the addiction, it's treating the drinking that you don't like. You're just replacing it with weightlifting or whatever it is that you want to do.
Right.
For me, addiction was like a full package deal. It was the cigarettes, the alcohol, and the cocaine. And if I didn't quit all of them at once, I would never quit any of them. And one of the big things that spurred me wanting to quit alcohol was I wanted to quit smoking. And I
Yeah.
was like, I know I'll never quit smoking if I'm drinking, because it's just too easy for me to pick up a cigarette when I'm drinking.
Yep.
And the cocaine was really just there too, so that I could drink more, so that I could keep the party going.
Right.
Because I really wanted to, for me, it was all about fun. And any way I could have fun and support my fun habits, being social and being around friends. It was an all or nothing deal. Either I quit everything or I'm doomed to fall into the trap of quitting nothing. And I know that I'll never be one of those drinkers that can just go have an afternoon beer with their friends and quit there.
Right.
That's not me. I'm like a very much all or nothing guy.
Same.
And if I probably went and had one beer right now, that would be it. I'd be smoking and doing coke again. Like it's a fine balance for me. And it's not hard. I just don't drink. Like, I don't want to make it sound easy.
Right.
It's not easy, but it's not hard. I just don't drink. I don't want to.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I could definitely relate to a lot of what you said. I think one of the biggest things was the service industry. I worked in the restaurant business for a long time, and a lot of my story sort of revolves around that as well. It's not, I don't think it's a negative connotation to the service industry, but there is definitely a way of life, or especially if it's a bar setting as opposed to a restaurant setting. So, and like you said, it sucks you in. So I tried very hard to remove myself from that scene and career prior to getting sober as well, because I knew that would sort of suck me back in. So we definitely have that in common. I'm curious because you kind of just quit cold turkey. What were the physical implications of that?
There was a physical component. I definitely had night sweats for 6 months or so. I would wake up and the bed would be drenched with sweat. I was shaky. I was on edge. I was angry at the world a lot. I was, because I was all of a sudden having to deal with emotions that I never had to deal with. I just repressed with alcohol and drugs. But now, I'm a real, I want to say real person, because I considered myself a zombie or a shell of a person because I was just going through the motions.
Yeah.
So now I'm a real person and I have real emotions and feelings, and it's weird. I feel things, and
yeah, we covered up
having to express myself.
Right. We covered up those feelings for so long with drugs and alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
You start having feelings that you may not necessarily know or understand as an adult. And it's kind of crazy. I don't think people without addictions or that used drugs and alcohol to feel numb understand that, but it is definitely a component of recovery.
It's one that I was ill-equipped to deal with post-recovery. But I think meditation, and my meditation practice is relatively new, but I'm seeing amazing results. I definitely have a temper.
Yeah.
So I think meditation has helped me be more centered and stop for a second and think about the situation before I go off the handle and blow my fuse and get angry at everybody.
I ask all my guests about meditation, so I'm glad you brought it up. Can you talk a little bit just about like your meditation routine, or your daily routine in regards to your recovery?
Absolutely. So my daily routine, I wake up, and first thing in the morning before I do anything or look at the phone or anything, I take 15 minutes to meditate. And I usually do like a guided meditation through Calm. I find it easier to do a guided meditation than to be left with my own thoughts, because my mind wanders so easily. But the meditation, really sets the tone for the day with me. And if I do meditate, and I hate to make it so dependent on meditation, but if I do meditate, I know I'm going to have a pretty good day. If I don't meditate, I might be off a little bit, feeling a little off. And then I usually take like an hour and work out. And, it'll either be cardio or some body weight fitness stuff. I'll work out. That makes me just feel much healthier.
Hmm.
And I feel like that is a big component because I definitely don't want to drink because I work out and I work really hard
Yeah.
to have like a nice physique. And I know if I went and drank, I would be chubby or what. It's funny
Not have a
actually
nice physique.
when I drank, I weighed 30 pounds less. So I weighed like 130 pounds,
Wow.
and I'm 5'11".
Wow. Yeah,
That's string bean.
it's
So
not healthy.
I've had to work really hard at like eating and being healthy to gain weight and get up to like a normal BMI. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to throw all that away either. So it's
Good.
for me, it's like doing things that make you get further from that addiction because you don't want to jeopardize these things you have. I have a dog, I have a car, I have a fiance, we're buying a house. These are all
Amazing.
things that wouldn't have been possible with me being the former person that I was.
As addicts, we typically use drugs and alcohol as our primary coping mechanism. What is a new coping skill that you've learned in recovery?
I did a guided meditation from Jeff Warren, I believe his name is, on the Calm app.
Yeah.
And one of the tools he mentioned was your thoughts and emotions are like Greyhound buses driving through the desert. And you're bigger than them. And at any time you can get off a bus, set up a lawn chair and just watch the buses go by. So my thoughts and emotions now become buses and they're just driving through the night desert. I'm sitting there in a lawn chair watching them. So anytime I'm stuck in like this kind of toxic thought pattern where I'm like, maybe, I should throw it all away or this is crazy or I'm angry, I pop out of my thoughts and I'm like, I'm bigger than my thoughts. And uh, I don't have to identify it as that thought, that toxic thought. That's not me. That's just the thought I'm having and it's now gone on the Greyhound bus.
I have to remember also that they are thoughts. They can be fleeting. It helps for me if I vocalize them to another person, because I have a lot of crazy thoughts and I have a tendency to want to act on them before I think them through and think about perhaps consequences or things associated with those actions. So
Mhm.
I like that Greyhound bus
Yeah,
analogy. Thanks for
that's
that.
okay. Your thoughts don't define you as a person.
Yeah,
Your actions do. I needed to go through what I went through too.
absolutely. Everyone has their own journey. What are you grateful for today?
Today, I am grateful that I have my life back from addiction. It kind of sounds a little corny, but I'm able to now have kind of that life I wanted. I have an awesome dog. I have an amazing fiance. We go hiking like twice a week. Um, I'm able to like meditate and be mindful, work out. I just have like this awesome life that I don't think would be possible if I were drinking. And at the end of the day, I'm grateful for that little nugget in the back of my head that was telling me, you got to quit doing this.
The little seed that has now
Yeah, the
grown.
seed.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
I like that. Any words of hope to leave our listeners with, or anything you want to plug, Michael?
Yeah, sure. If you're thinking about quitting drinking or slowing down, even whatever you can do to mitigate the addiction that you have, I urge you to do it. Um, there is a life on the other side. There are people that you can connect with that don't drink. There is fulfilling, meaningful relationships that can exist without alcohol and drugs. Also, I wanted to plug um, my Instagram. I'm just starting out with a little bit of thought leadership in the addiction world. My Instagram is Be Sober Curious, all one word. I'm going to be launching a website and blog soon, and it's going to have some words of wisdom. If you're struggling with recovery, it's going to have some cool drinks you can make with some
Mm.
friends. If you're trying to fit in at like maybe a party and not have a drink, because I used to be a bartender and I still like making drinks,
Fun.
just ones that don't involve alcohol.
That brings us to the close of today's episode, friends. Thanks so much for listening. Huge thank you to Michael for being so open and honest. Hopefully, you heard something that resonates with you. And if we help just one person, Michael, our job is done.
Yes.
You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at the Sobriety Diaries. youtube.com/Nate Kelly, where we upload today's video podcast, or on Instagram at the Sobriety Diaries Pod. If you'd like to share your story with me, reach out at the Sobriety Diaries Pod at gmail.com. Okay, friends, as promised, details on our Content Creator Bundle giveaway, which includes the GoPro Hero 7, Joseph Hoag's book, Crushing YouTube, a LED cube light, the lavalier microphone, and a vlogging tripod. Bounce on over to Instagram at the Sobriety Diaries Pod for all the rules and to register. We will announce our winner on Instagram on July 12th. Go check it out. Check back soon for new episodes with new stories to tell. But until then, try your best not to drink and be good to yourselves. Bye, friends.